Hello everyone, myself Prashant. Hope you all are doing great. So we are covering fundamental rights, right? And this is features of fundamental rights. So today we will discuss this. So let's begin. So first point says that some fundamental rights are available to citizens while others are available to all persons. Now what does this all person include? So it includes citizens as well as foreigners as well as legal person. And what is the definition of this legal person? So legal persons are corporation and companies, right? Then it says that a fundamental right is not absolute, right? It is qualified. And hereafter it says that a state can impose reasonable restriction, right? So if fundamental right would have been absolute, then in that case a state could not have imposed reasonable restriction. Since fundamental right is not absolute, then only a state can impose reasonable restriction on it, right? So I hope it's clear. Now let's move to the next slide. So here it says that most of the fundamental rights are against arbitrary action of state. So what does this arbitrary means? Arbitrary means unjustified action of state, with few exception like those against state and private individual both. So there are certain fundamental right which are against arbitrary action of state as well as private individual, but mostly it's against arbitrary action of state, right? Here it says that when rights that are available against state action are violated by private individual, then only ordinary legal remedy is available, right? Needless to explain. Now let's move to the next slide. So here it says that some fundamental rights are negative in character. So what does this negative in character means? It means that fundamental right places limitation on state action, right? So that is why it is negative in character, while some fundamental rights are positive in nature because it confers certain privileges on the persons, right? I hope it's clear. Since it confers certain privileges on the person, that is why it is positive in nature, right? Then here it says that fundamental right is justiciable in nature. You need to know this word, right? Justiciable in nature. So what does this justiciable means? It means that if there is violation, right, then in that case it can be enforced in court of law. Person can move to the court for enforcement of his or her fundamental right, right? And non-justiciable is quite opposite. In that case person cannot move to the court for the enforcement of his or her fundamental right, right? Now let's move to the next slide. So since we know that Supreme Court is the guardian of our constitution, right? And Supreme Court is the guarantor of fundamental right, right? Supreme Court is guarantor of fundamental right. So that is why this point says that fundamental right is defended and guaranteed by Supreme Court, right? Very important. Who defends or guarantees the fundamental right? Then the answer is Supreme Court, right? Then it says that they are not sacrosanct or permanent. So what does this sacrosanct means? So sacrosanct means that something which is permanent, but our fundamental right in Indian Constitution is not sacrosanct or permanent, right? Very important point, right? It can be taken away by state according to the Constitution. What is there in Constitution? According to the Constitution, fundamental right is not permanent, right? But Supreme Court has the power to see to it, or that basic structure of the Constitution is not being taken away by the legislature, by the parliament, right? Then it says that fundamental right can be suspended during national emergency except article 20 and 21. So fundamental right gets suspended during national emergency, right? But there are two articles which are exception to it. So article 20 will not get suspended, and article 21 will not get suspended. So we will discuss these articles later on. Then here it says that for the six right under article 19, so there are sub clauses under article 19. So in those sub clauses there are various rights. So it says that further six right under article 19 gets suspended when national emergency declared on ground of external aggression, not armed rebellion. So all the six rights which are there in article 19, right? If you read article 19, then there are article 19 clause 1, clause 2, clause 3. So all those six right under article 19 will get suspended when national emergency is declared on ground of external aggression, not armed rebellion, right? Very important. So article 19 gets suspended. Article 19 gets suspended when national emergency is on ground of external aggression. Very important. External aggression, right? External aggression. I hope it's clear, right? And here it says, let's discuss the previous point to interrelate. Here it says that fundamental right can be suspended during national emergency except article 20 and 21, right? So article 20 and 21 will always be there, right? And here it says that article 19 gets suspended when, here it says that article 19 gets suspended when national emergency is declared on ground of external aggression, right? You need to distinct these 2 points for better understanding, right? Now let's move to the next slide. So here it says that scope of operation is limited by article 31, right? 31A, article 31B and article 31C. So we'll see these articles later on when we will cover the articles of fundamental rights. So for now, just know that article 31A, 31B and 31C limits the operation of fundamental right, right? Then here it says that fundamental rights application to members of armed forces, paramilitary forces, intelligence agencies and analogous services. Analogous means similar services, right? So similar services can be restricted or abrogated by parliament. So its application is restricted or abrogated for armed forces, paramilitary forces, intelligence agencies and similar services, and this thing is highlighted in article 33. Very important. You should know what article 33 says, and this article 3 is in fundamental rights section only, right? It's in part 3 of Indian Constitution only, though we will discuss it again later on, right? Now let's move to the next slide. So here it says that application of fundamental right is restricted in martial law. So when martial law is enforced in any area, then there as well fundamental right is restricted for citizens, and this thing is there in article 34 of Indian Constitution. Very important. This also in fundamental rights section and part 3 of Indian Constitution. We will discuss this also later on. Then here it says that few of them can be enforced through, it should be R, pardon me for this, few of them can be enforced through law made by parliament, not state legislature, right? So few of the fundamental rights can be enforced through a law made by parliament, not a state legislature, right? very important. So which article highlights this? So article 35. This also in fundamental rights section, and it is in part 3 of Indian Constitution, right? Now let's move to the next slide. So while discussing all these fundamental all the features of fundamental rights, we saw multiple times state word was used, right? We saw that arbitrary action, fundamental right is for is against arbitrary action of state. So fundamental right is against arbitrary action of a state. So what does this state definition includes? So here we'll see. So state definition includes the following, we'll see. And this definition of a state is in which article? So it is in article 12 of Indian Constitution, right? Very important. This is also in fundamental rights section, part 3 of Indian Constitution, right? We will see all these articles from article 12 to article 35 later on, but for now, just for better understanding, you should know that under which article it comes, right? So what are the things which is included in this state definition? So state includes parliament, obviously. State includes state legislature also, right? State includes all executive and legislative organ of union and state government, very important. Then state also includes all local authorities, very important. State also includes all other statutory or non-statutory authorities, very important. So all this comes under definition of state, right? You should know, because in fundamental rights, every fundamental right, most of the fundamental right is against arbitrary action of a state. So what does this state includes? So here we are seeing the state definition. So state definition includes all these wings, right? You should know all these things are part of state, right? Now let's move to the next slide. Now here it's interesting to note that according to Supreme Court verdict, even private company working as an instrument of state fall within the definition of state. Very, very important, right? So the definition which we saw of a state earlier was according to Constitution, right? But later on Supreme Court gave verdict, and according to the verdict of Supreme Court, even private company working as an instrument of state fall within the definition of state. Very, very important. You should know. Questions have been asked on this statement, right? So I hope I have covered all the important points in this features of fundamental rights. Next I'll be coming up with all the articles which is there in fundamental rights from article 12 to article 35. We will cover all those articles in detail, since it's a very important part of Indian Constitution, right? It is heart and soul of the Indian Constitution. So thank you for your time. I hope you learned and really enjoyed this video. So thank you again. Thank you so much.